Okay, brilliant. Right, so you all probably remember when you were at school and the teacher used to say it's only your own time you're wasting, when you used to be mucking about at the end of lessons, which I'm sure none of you would have done. But it's kind of like that in your business as well. There are a whole load of ways that we waste time in our businesses. So in 2020, McKinsey did a study and they estimated that 2/3, more or less, of the time that was allocated to dedicated sales in businesses was not actually spent making sales. It was spent doing all the things that go around making sales. It was spent preparing the materials. It was spent following up with the customer. It was spent sending out documents, contracts, etc. That's a huge amount. Now, obviously, that varies from one business to another, and I would imagine that, for Matt, for example, in financial services, probably there's an awful lot of time that goes around the sale compared to for someone who is in a retail environment where the sale is much more transactional. And some of that is unavoidable, but surely 2/3 can't be the right balance. They further went on to estimate that 30% of all work done could be replaced using tools that are on the market right now. That's a day and a half a week for every single person in your organization of work that you could just not do. And that a further 20%, the tools to do that could be built from technology that already exists. That's half of all of the work that happens could, in theory, be automated without the need to develop any new technology. Now, some of that is quite cutting edge, and it will include things like self-driving cars, which in theory can obviously replace a lot of costs around deliveries and those sorts of activities. So that's in that 20%. But the 30% that could be replaced with tools that are commercially available right now is predominantly administrative, repeatable tasks. And those exist in every business, irrespective of size. Some other interesting studies, and I should have cited the sources on these. They're not from McKinsey, but X.AI did a study in 2014 to 2017, looking at how many emails are required in order to actually get a meeting booked in the diary. They looked at over 20,000 meetings set up globally across all sorts of different size organizations, different industrial sectors and different countries. And the average was 8.02. So that's the email tennis backwards and forwards. Can you do Thursday? No. What about Friday? Yes, but only between these times. Oh no, I can't do that. What about these times? Backwards and forwards. Now, even if it only takes you 30 seconds to write that email, that's 4 minutes used up. If it's a 30-minute meeting, that's more than 10% of your working time used up just setting up the meeting, which is crazy. But worse than that, a study across the therapy industry in 2019 showed that 14% of all booked appointments were not actually kept. So you spend 8 emails going backwards and forwards to book an appointment in, but actually 1 in 7 of those is getting cancelled anyway. So, these are all like big wastes of time. There are also all sorts of other activities that happen under the hood in your business, which are repetitive, tedious activities that need to be done. You didn't get into business to do them, but they kind of come as a necessary evil. Why bother automating any of this stuff? Well, what I tried to show on this diagram here is really there are some things that you could scale up by bringing more humans into your business. But humans come with a cost, and it's a cost that recurs every single year because they kind of like to be paid. But also, they're actually not a great solution for a number of tasks. The problem with humans is we get bored. So if I give you 10,000 forms and say, type the contents of this form into this spreadsheet, you're going to make mistakes and you're going to get distracted and you're going to get a bit bored and you're going to take a lunch break and you're going to wander off and you're going to be on your email and on Facebook. And actually, you're not very productive, but you're also not giving it your full attention. And that's just because that's how our brains are wired. We're not great at doing that. So scaling up by just kind of hiring more people is actually not a great solution in a lot of cases. what humans are amazing at is making decisions that require some depth and complexity and creativity and being able to think dynamically. And the good thing is, if you think about what a computer's good at, it's almost the exact opposite. A computer will happily sit and key those 1,000 forms into that spreadsheet ad infinitum, right? It doesn't care, it will just get on and do it. But it's actually really difficult, even with most advanced AI techniques, to give computers the ability to be really very creative. And there is, obviously research happening in that direction that moves it in that way. But, we're a long way away from that point. The downside of an automated solution is that sometimes the year one cost actually can be more expensive than hiring in people. But the upside is from year two onwards, it's massively cheaper. So what that allows you to do is to construct a business model where the repetitive tasks that have to happen in your business in order to scale it up can be automated. They can happen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that will allow you to scale without scaling your costs appropriately. And you can use the people in your business to do the creative tasks, to do the human tasks, to actually speak to your customers and engage with them and create new content and manage that process. And this point in the presentation, I do sometimes go off and talk at length about sort of the litany of businesses that have failed to adopt new emerging technologies and disappeared. And I'm not going to do that at length because I think a number of you have heard me talk about that before. But think about just briefly as an example, the one that's always cited is Blockbuster. Blockbuster had the opportunity to purchase Netflix when Netflix was 2 years old. And they looked at Netflix and they said, we don't need to buy Netflix. We've got the biggest video shop franchise on the high street across most of North America and most of Western Europe. And they turned it down. And within 10 years, Blockbuster was bankrupt and Netflix was one of the biggest businesses on the planet. And they could have bought that entire business, but they didn't see the value in switching away from renting out DVDs by that point to customers and moving to streaming. They could not see that streaming was going to take off and could do things in a different way. And it's that paradigm shift which we need to all take in order to really understand why automation matters to us. Carrying on doing what we've always done is going to get us left behind. So one of the things I hear most often is people saying, but my business can't use automation. And so I collected together a little bit of a use case of, here's some stuff that I've helped businesses do automation with over the last 12 months. So my challenge to you would be, without reading all of these as they come up, get to the end of this little sequence and tell me that there is literally nothing here that you could use in your business. Because I think every business of every size will see at least one thing on this list and go, that would actually be kind of useful. That would save me some time. And you start to see quite quickly, this is quite a long list, quite a lot of areas of things that you're doing in your business all the time, which are frankly boring. It is nearly finished, I promise, but you get the idea. There's a lot here, right? So have a think about that and have a think about other people that you know who have businesses. There are things in there that I think will help everybody. So the second objection is, my business can't afford automation. That's for big companies. This is a complicated, expensive undertaking. Well, for you, I have got, especially today, to answer that question, 3 tips for a tenner. So here's 3 things you can do in your business for a tenner or less each that will help to actually automate some of what you do. So the first I'm going to open with here is calendar booking. I heavily use Calendly. I know other people have other tools that they like to use. I personally find Calendly is the most intuitive to set up. However, what I would say, and Nick would rightly take me to task if I didn't say this, is any of you who are on Microsoft already, you already have Microsoft bookings down in the bottom right-hand corner. You've already got a free online calendar tool. You're already paying for it. You should get on and use that. But what these tools allow you to do is to take that 8.02 emails just out of the loop. You can just get your diary bookings online. You can have them configured to fit the time of the week that you want to do, the type of meetings that they are. You can take payment at the time of booking with most of these systems. You can just remove the whole process. And, you know, there are variants between them. I did a review, which is on my blog last week, of the 4 tools mentioned here, plus 2 others. And there are differences between them. Mostly it's look and feel. There are some specific features that if you need, you might want to pick a particular tool. So the X.AI tool, for example, is an AI assistant which will do these bookings, but it will do it off the back of simply forwarding an email rather than having an online link. But all of the tools you see on this page, with the exception of Acuity, you can get for under £10 a month. As I say, if you get Microsoft bookings, it's because you've bought the entire Microsoft Office suite at £9.40. Acuity is only slightly more. It's £12 in the UK at the moment. The other 2 are £10 or less. So if you haven't got a tool to do this, then you should get on and do it. I also put together a short course for Calendly, and I will do for the others, that talks you through how to set it up from the very beginning. So if anyone's interested and needs that support, let me know. My second tip for a tenner is Zapier. Now, depending on the package you get with Zapier, it can be slightly the other side of the £10 mark, to be fair, but the free package allows you to do an awful lot. Zapier is like the Swiss Army knife of automation. It allows you to connect every application that you use, probably, to every other application. It's got 2,000, in fact, slightly over 2,000 now integrations available. So you have to look quite hard to find a pair of applications it can't integrate. And what that allows you to do without any code is to have a trigger in one application that causes something to happen in another, which doesn't sound that exciting, but when you start thinking through the possibilities, it really opens up the ability to automate almost anything you do. So you think about, for example, you put your calendar online and perhaps you have a power hour booking in there that is chargeable. So people go on there already in their Calendly, they go in, they book the appointment, they pay you for your power hour. That's brilliant, but you've got to issue a VAT invoice because you're VAT registered. So you have to then go into your accounting platform and key in all the details and issue the VAT invoice. If you install Zapier and configure it in the right way, what it will do is automatically detect that booking. It will automatically interface with your accounting platform, automatically create the VAT invoice, and automatically send it to the person that booked the meeting. You never even need to touch it. And that's why this tool is fantastic. There are other tools that will do this as well. Again, if you're on a Microsoft Office suite, you've got Power Automate that will do something similar. There are platforms like auto.io, automate.io, and tide.io that all do very similar things. The major difference between those and Zapier is just the number of integrations. Zapier has got absolutely everything covered. And you can build pretty much arbitrary integrations. So there's one that I have just literally got live this morning, which now plants a tree every time I receive a review on Google, which is kind of cool. I also built one, to be fair, largely as a dare for my business coach, who said, I bet you can't recommend a beer every time someone signs up on my course. So I built an integration between his sign-up form and the Brewdog API to recommend him which beer he should drink to celebrate each sign-up. So there is a huge amount you can do with Zapier. My third one is MailChimp. And I know we've talked about MailChimp in this group before. But again, for £8.40, you can get the subscription of MailChimp that allows you to use automations. And I'm actually not particularly going to recommend MailChimp for its primary use here, which is to manage your mailing list. It is a perfectly good tool for doing bulk mailing, notwithstanding that if it's not configured properly, there are always the deliverability issues you get with these mailing tools, and people just not really reading bulk emails. So you do need to think about the quality and the content of any emails you use it for. But actually, I think MailChimp is an amazing automation solution for something that is almost a side feature, which is the ability to put up very rapidly a simple landing page where you can direct your leads to enter their details and then have an automatic sequence behind it that will issue them with your lead magnet. So you may have a PDF, or you may have a piece of video, or you may have something else that you would like to exchange for people's contact details. And this allows you to have a completely hands-free solution set up and running in the background. It can appear as a subdomain against your main website, so it feels like it's your brand. You can make it really look and feel like it's part of your main website. And in the background, it can just be out there and can share an arbitrary sequence actually of events over a period of time, which will allow you to have a simple put in your email address, and you then receive an email with a link to download a PDF, and that's the end of it. Or actually, it could send a document a day for a week as part of something like a 5-day challenge. So I actually think, although that's not really the core purpose for which MailChimp was designed, it's a brilliant tool for that. It's very cost effective and it's very simple for anyone to use. And I'll throw in one more because it's a tool stack that I think is very powerful. It is a bit more expensive, so it broke my tenner rule, which is why it's 3 for a tenner and 1 for £30. But for £30 a month, Zoho One is an amazing stack of applications that I would definitely recommend you look at. I have now moved to it and I have saved more than £30 a month by being able to simply reduce the number of subscriptions I have got. But there's some quite nice automation features in Zoho One. So it comes with a CRM system, which obviously will allow you to track all of your leads and customers, and you can record whatever details you want against them, including, if you that way inclined, their photograph. But what's super useful is it includes an e-signature module, which allows you to electronically issue and have legally binding signatures electronically delivered onto contracts. So that's very useful. And again, you can hook that into a number of these other tools for automation. So perhaps when you sign people up, you want them to sign your contract before you do business with them, that can just go out automatically. You can also use it to replace social media scheduling and automation tools like Hootsuite. It has its own version of that. And if you're the sort of business that has help desk or ticketing type solutions, which I do certainly, and some of the rest of you will have, there are tools around that allow you to build automated workflows so that if someone raises a question, it can be automatically answered or passed to you or the right person very simply. Also you can embed a bunch of other things like website chat. There are actually 47 tools in the stack. Some of them are not worth looking at. They have their own version of Microsoft Word, for example, which is just not worth even going there. But £30 a month for 47 applications is a pretty good deal, frankly, by anyone's standards. So that is effectively 4 things you could all just take away and do. But the failure rate for tech projects is actually eye-watering. So before you just go charging in and just go, great, I'm going to implement these, just think about this. Across every geography, every industry, every business size, it is around a 70% failure rate employing any sort of tech project. By failure rate, I don't necessarily mean it completely, it doesn't need to destroy your business. It could just be a question of actually you don't get the benefits you expect. But 70%, and it's been stubbornly high, it has been 70% or thereabouts for the last 20 years when I've been working in tech. It has literally not moved. And the reason it happens is what I personally describe as proper preparation prevents piss poor performance, to coin a phrase my father used to drum into us. It basically fails because there are actually 3 stages you need to go through before you deploy tech in your business. It doesn't really matter how big or small the tech is. Obviously, the bigger it is, the longer you want to spend thinking this through, but you must think these things through in the right order. So first, think people. Actually, have you got the right people in your business to do this? If it's just you, that's simple, right? It's a question about, do I think this is the right thing to do, and am I supportive? But if it's a larger business, you need to start thinking about, is the leadership team on board with making this change? Do we have the right culture in the organization to adopt it? And do we have the right skills? You then need to think about process, and you need to think about, actually, are we clear what the business is here to do? Again, if you're a single business, that's not so difficult, but it is really easy to get distracted by shiny objects around tech. So it's important to be kind of absolutely focused and say, this is what my business is here to do. And just because I could now go and do 17 other things with this tech, it doesn't mean I should. So that's the next one. Ooh, sorry, it's just accidentally maximized the chat across my screen. You should then think about the processes that you've got today. There's no point in automating and speeding up crap processes. All you will do is do the wrong thing really, really quickly. It's much more sensible to stop, look at what the process is trying to achieve, redesign the process properly, and then move on to the next stage around tech. Obviously important at this stage as well to understand your costs and where your kind of real cost pinch points are, because you probably want to save some money. Only at that point do you think about the tech, and the first place you start is the core tools. So this is where, you know, someone like Nick will say, if you've got Microsoft, stick with Microsoft. And I say, absolutely do that. Don't try and move from Microsoft to G Suite because you can, because actually it's just an unnecessary change. Think about whether or not within your organization you have got the capabilities to administer whatever you're putting in. Actually, you know, do you need to buy in skills? Do you need to buy a support package for whatever you're going to put in? Or do you have people in your business who could actually just operate this? And finally, think about, do you actually need, it's less of a case with cloud things, but do you actually need infrastructure to run this on? So if you're going to think about databases, for example, you need to think about where you're going to put those. That, when you've done all of that, is the point at which you then go, right, great, I'm going to put this tool in. Now, that process might take you 10 minutes for a small choice in a small business, or it might take you 10 months for a major procurement decision in a large business, but you have to go through it. Right, the last bit I'm just going to talk about really quickly is data. Once you've got all this automation, it's generating a whole load of data. So you can start thinking about what data you need to run your business. There's a few thoughts on this page. I'm not going to go through every single one, but you get the idea that you can start to draw a lot more data together. You can become a data-driven organization and start to actually have a much stronger handle on what you're doing and why you're doing it and which bits are working and not. So that is me done. I appreciate that has taken probably longer than I had intended, but hopefully you found that useful. I will open up to some Q&A. I'm going to turn off the screen share so I can see your faces, and I will keep the recording running for a little bit longer. So, right. Who's got any questions? Simone.
Okay, so I was looking into Streak as a CRM. Which would you prefer, the Zoho or Streak or?
Personally, I like Zoho because of everything else you get bundled with it. As a CRM, it's. I mean, to be fair, the CRMs have been so commoditized. There's not a lot of difference between them a lot of the time. There's some slight differences. Zoho, you do get a lot of other stuff for the same price. HubSpot has got a lot of integrations, and there's some fancy stuff you can do there, but it gets super expensive once you start scaling up number of customers. It's kind of great to have that one free for as long as you can, but as soon as you start paying, they really kind of penalize you. And then I think you kind of almost got a market that's everything else underneath it, which is where I put Streak, you know, in terms of they are not the big kind of two, but they are also there are also a whole bunch of niche ones in there. So it's always worth looking at for your business whether that is pre-configured in a way that is just the right thing for you. But a lot of software these days now, it's a question of, do you just like the look and feel? Because the features is just an arms race, right? All of the software providers on cloud products are just racing ahead of each other. So as soon as someone comes out with a new feature, everyone else sticks it on their development backlog, and it's in that, you know, everyone else's product 3 months later, right? So it's a bit of a moving target to try and hit. But if you found a tool that the price point is right and it's got the features you need today and you like the look and feel, there are some basic questions to ask. So does it integrate with other things that you've got? If it doesn't, don't go there. It's just not worth it. But if it integrates nicely with other things that you've got, then you know, I generally try to sort of encourage my clients to be flexible and go work with what works for you, because what works in your business is not going to be the same tool that would, for example, work if you were, you know, a builder, right? For example.
Thank you.
Stunned silence from everyone else. Anyone got anything else? I talked you all into the ground.
I think Heather dropped a question in the
Oh, did you? Sorry, Heather. Go on, tell me your question.
I think can you hear me?
Yes.
I can't hear myself. I just think I want to be able to do a lot of things myself at this stage. And I'm just wondering, if I was going to do YouTube videos, what would be some easy peasy editing I could do?
Editing for YouTube videos. Personally, I used VideoPad. Are you on Apple or Windows?
Windows.
Yeah. VideoPad, NCH software VideoPad I use. Personally, I find it quite good. There are others, Lightworks is good, but it's complicated as hell, because the free version is basically the same thing that I use at sort of Pixar and big studios. So it's kind of like, yeah, great, but I need a degree in, you know, videography to actually understand the question it's asking. So it's, yeah, and as Nick's saying, if you're on Apple, iMovie is the way to go for sure. So cool. Right. I'm going to stop the recording.